The PHP forms are used to serve dynamic data between a client and the server. In achieving this purpose, the PHP superglobal $_get and the $_post are used to collect form data. Let's take a look at a quick example of a PHP form. Here is an example of a basic form using HTML. We would be using this form to submit data to our PHP server. When the user fills this form on the web browser, on clicking on Submit, the form data is sent for processing to the PHP file named process.php. The form data is sent with the HTTP post method. To display the submitted data, we would try and echo the variables sent in the process.php. Let's take a look at the process.php file. In the process.php file, we are going to access the variables set by the user in the form using the global variable $_post. Also the same thing for the email field. Let's save and take a look at the results on the web. Now let's refresh our page. Let's input our name and then the email. On clicking on Submit, the form data will be submitted to the process.php file, where our variables set in the input fields will be displayed. This is my email displayed and this is my name displayed. Now, let's talk about the difference between the superglobal variables $_get and $_post. The get method is an array of variables passed to the PHP script via the URL parameter. while the post method is an array of variables passed to the current script via the HTTP post method. I would like you to note that whenever you are using a get method to submit a form post, then the variables or data you are sending via that get method is visible to everyone, because all the data you are sending will be displayed in the URL. Let's take a look at an example. I will change the method we are using to submit our form here to get, and then save, and then come into our process.php. I'll change the post super global variable to get, and then save. Now let's go back to our form page. Let's refresh. Let's pass in a value. Now, on clicking on the submit button, let's take a look at the URL. In the URL, you will note that the value passed in for name and email are all displayed on the URL bar. This is how the get method works in PHP. Now, let's introduce ourselves to form validation a little. In our previous example, using the post method, I want to validate and make sure that this form, when submitted, is actually a post method. Inside my PHP file, the process.php file, I can do the validation in there and do the check using an if statement. I'll use the global variable server to check if the request method is actually a post method. If the request method is a post method, then I want the browser to display the name and the email. Then else, it should display method not allowed. Now let's save our process.php and then go to our browser. Let's go back to the form and then submit. Because we are actually sending a post request, then we have our result. Let's change the form method to get and see the kind of results we will get on the browser. Now let's go back to our form. Let's change this method to get. Let's save. Then let's go back to our form. Let's refresh and then supply a name. Let's click on submit. You can see that the validation process has occurred and the browser is telling us that the get method is not allowed. That is how to perform a form validation in PHP. There are many more validation checks that can be performed on form submission. You can check out the PHP documentation site php.net for many more.